Hi, I'm Charles, here with Team Alyvix. In recent videos, we looked at how to get Alyvix working with NetEye 4. Today, let's look at the entire Alyvix NetEye lifecycle. We'll build a complete test case from scratch and then add it to NetEye as in our previous video. The test case we'll build is a typical but critical task often seen in business settings, running an application on a remote machine. If this process breaks down, your business may come to a stop until you can fix it. That's the advantage of having Alyvix working with your monitoring system. Together, they'll let you know when things slow down or stop so you can quickly fix the problem. In today's example, we'll show Alyvix how to use RDC to log in to a remote server and run an application there. We'll record the time elapsed at critical points, which will let us know not just whether it's working or not, but if it's taking more time than it should. Ready to get started? Why not first subscribe to get notified about future Alyvix videos? To show Alyvix how to check on a remote application, we're going to build a script with 7 steps. The first part is to log in via RDC. Because for RDC, you may need to type in credentials and confirm by clicking on buttons, logging in is the first 5 of the 7 steps in our script. The last 2 steps will launch Server Manager, which we've chosen just as an example. In a production test case with your application, you would of course add more steps to test its functionality and responsiveness at various points. But let's start from the beginning. Switch to your test cases directory and fire up Alyvix Editor.
First, we need to launch the RDC application. I'm not marking any interface elements on the screen because sometimes the best way to launch an application is just to enter its full path like I do here. For RDC, we can also speed things up by adding an RDP file as an argument, containing parameters like a user ID so that we don't have to add steps to enter all of them. Many applications have similar shortcuts you can take advantage of, such as command line options. Now the RDC window is up. We want to press the Connect button here, but we also want to be sure we're pressing the right button, so we add nearby components as a reference. Now that Alyvix can find the Connect button, we just have to single-click on it. When we test this second step to make sure it works, it also has the nice side effect of bringing up the credentials window needed for the next step. In the third step, Alyvix should find the credentials text box, type in the password, and then click on the OK button. We have to be careful not to use the actual password here, because an Alyvix test case file is by design an open standard, with everything stored in clear text. So instead, we'll use an encrypted version of the password, which Alyvix will automatically decrypt every time the test case runs. This link points to our video that shows you how to create the encryption cipher using the Alyvix cipher command. The next step in the RDC sequence is the window to accept the security certificate. We know the server is on our own internal network, so we just have to click the Yes button. So far, all of these interface steps have been on our local machine. Thus, they'll always execute almost instantly. In cases like this, you should unclick the checkbox named Measure, which tells Alyvix we don't care how long these steps took. Instead, the success and speed of this next step is not determined by our local machine, but by the remote machine and the network. Once the connection is established, the desktop for the specified user and server appears on our local machine. We'll tell Alyvix to look for the Start button of the remote desktop so we know it launched successfully, and then to click on it and type Server Manager to start the Server Manager application. And this time, we want to leave the Measure box checked so that Alyvix will tell us how long it took from the click in the last step until the remote desktop appears on our local screen. Since Server Manager is running as a remote application, it will proceed quickly unless there are problems with that machine's resources or the network. We'll make step number 6 tell us if that's the case by looking for the graphical elements of the Server Manager window and leaving Measure checked. These are the 2 most important steps in our monitoring check, because what we really want to know is how long it took the remote desktop to appear and how long it took our application to appear. In a production environment, we would now continue by checking other tasks in the application, but for our example here, we're now ready to close everything down. One of the easiest ways to close an application is just to double-click on its window icon. It's not enough just to close the application though. We have to make sure everything is cleaned up when we're done. Why? Because as a monitoring check, we want to repeat this task over and over. If something goes wrong, having multiple applications still open will bog down the operating system or lead to confusion with multiple application windows. To cleanly exit no matter what, we add some steps to the fail and exit sections of the script at the top left. The fail script runs if one of our steps above takes longer than the number of seconds we've allowed it to in its timeout field. Our fail script should first kill the application window if it's still there, and then exit RDC itself. Our exit script runs at the end if no failure occurred, so it just needs to exit RDC.
Let's run everything from start to finish to be sure it works. And while we're at it, let's run it from within NetEye as a preview of the result of integrating Alyvix into NetEye. The moment both the session and test case are enabled, Alyvix Service will schedule the application to run on the remote machine. It will then collect the resulting timing data and send it back to the requester, in this case, NetEye. So how do we configure our new Alyvix test case to run in the session on NetEye? Our previous video describes how to install and configure Alyvix and create a node and session in NetEye. On the Notes panel, you'll see the status of all configured sessions on each node. Now go to the Test Cases panel and create a new instance of a test case we just built, filling in its fields as shown. Our new test case will appear in the list of test cases, so we choose it and select Create. It then appears in the table, disabled by default, so we click on its row to bring up its session panel and then enable the test case for the sessions we want. Now we can check that our test case is working successfully by looking at the first report it produces. So let's go to the Reports tab on the Test Case panel. Once the first run has finished, we can look at its timing data and the output screenshots to ensure that our application is performing well over RDC. And that's it. We've looked at the entire Alyvix lifecycle by building an Alyvix test case that logs into a remote server via RDC, runs an application there, and records how long each step took. We then schedule a test case in a NetEye session and check the resulting timing data and reports with screenshots in NetEye. We'll be back soon with other videos to help you get even more done with Alyvix Service and NetEye. See you then.